You stand in the shadowed heart of a samurai's quarters, the air thick with the acrid tang of sweat and the faint, coppery reek of blood-soaked tatama mats. The year is 1600, and before you, a warrior kneels, his katana gleaming under flickering lantern light, his breath ragged not from battle, but from a ritual that binds him to his young apprentice in ways that would make modern sensibilities recoil. This is no tale of honor-bound swordplay or stoic bushido. This is the raw, unfiltered truth of the samurai's hidden world, where sexual practices, woven into the fabric of their warrior code, were as shocking as they were sacred. You're about to uncover a history so visceral, so unsettling, that it was buried for centuries beneath layers of mythologized valor. The samurai, Japan's revered warrior class, lived lives of paradox. Men of discipline and duty, yet entangled in intimate rites that defy the sanitized narratives of textbooks. Let's tear away the veil. Before we plunge into the raw underbelly of samurai sexuality, if you're gripped by these forgotten truths of history, hit that like button and subscribe for more revelations that cut through the fog of time. Comment below and tell me where you're listening from. I'm fascinated by how we're connected across the globe, unearthing these haunting stories together. Now, let's dive into the stark realities of feudal Japan, with a samurai's code of honor intertwined with practices that would shock even the most hardened among us. The truth begins with Shudo, a formalized system of male love that wasn't just tolerated, but celebrated as a cornerstone of samurai loyalty and virtue. Shudo, or Wakashudo, the way of the youth, was no mere dalliance. It was a codified bond between an older samurai, the ninja, and his younger apprentice, the wakashu, often a boy as young as 13. This wasn't casual affection, but a ritualized relationship, steeped in the warrior ethos, where the ninja mentored his wakashu in martial prowess and bushido's rigid code, while their physical intimacy, often sexual, was seen as a sacred exchange of loyalty. Historical records, like those in the 11th century tale of Genji, reveal scenes of men choosing youthful male lovers over women, their desires framed not as sin, but as a pursuit of transcendent beauty. Genji pulled the boy down beside him. The text recounts, finding the boy more attractive than his chilly sister. This wasn't an outlier. Diaries from the Heian period brim with accounts of emperors and samurai indulging in such bonds, their affections documented with a frankness that staggers modern readers. The air in these encounters was heavy with the musk of oiled armor and the sharp bite of sake, the intimacy unfolding in private chambers where loyalty was sealed not just in words but in flesh. The samurai's world was one of stark contrasts, where the same hands that wielded katanas with lethal precision cradled young apprentices in acts of devotion. Shudo wasn't hidden. It was exalted, seen as a path to virtue. The Denbu Monogatari, a 1640 text, captures samurai debating the merits of male versus female love while bathing in a river, concluding that male-male pursuits are well suited to the warrior aristocracy. The ninja's role was to mold the wakashu into a warrior, but the physical component, often penetrative, with the ninja as the active partner, was believed to forge an unbreakable bond. Letters between lovers, like one from 1667 between Mashida Tanishin and Moriwaki Gonkuro, reveal the intensity. I made my way at night to your distant residence 327 times over the past 3 years. The journey was perilous, the devotion absolute, yet the act itself carried a grim irony. Samurai, trained to face death without flinching, were expected to surrender their lives for their lover or lord, a loyalty tested in the crucible of intimacy. Yet this wasn't a world of equal desires. The wakashu, often pre-adolescent, had little agency, their role defined by submission to the ninja's will. Contemporary accounts, like those of the Shingen pre-Socho in the Muromachi era, hint at a darker undercurrent. Boys were expected to yield out of duty, their affection a performance of loyalty rather than passion. The samurai's code demanded absolute fidelity, and refusal could mean disgrace or death. In the Satsuma region, where Shudo was particularly entrenched, young boys were groomed for these roles, their beauty cultivated to mirror the androgynous ideal of the Bishonen, or beautiful youth. The air in Satsuma's dojos was thick with the scent of chrysanthemum oil used to anoint these youths, their bodies prepared for rituals that blurred the line between mentorship and exploitation. The psychological toll was immense. Boys, trained to suppress emotion, bore the weight of their ninja's desires, their own feelings buried beneath the rigid mask of Bushido. The samurai's sexual practices extended beyond Shudo to a broader acceptance of male bisexuality, where love for women was secondary, even scorned. Samurai writings like those in the 17th century Hagakure dismiss female love as feminizing, a distraction from the purity of male bonds. Sexual intercourse with women was often a duty for procreation, not pleasure, while male relationships were celebrated for their spiritual depth. A samurai's primary wife, chosen for political alliances, was expected to bear heirs, but her husband's true affections often lay elsewhere. The tale of the Haika, an epic from the 13th century, hints at warriors whose passions were reserved for their male companions, their wives relegated to the periphery of their emotional lives. The stench of political marriages hung heavy in samurai households, where the cloying perfume of noble women masked the loveless contracts that bound them to their husbands. Women, too, played unexpected roles in this world of warrior intimacy. Onimusha, female samurai, were trained in the naginata and fought alongside men, their prowess celebrated in tales like that of Tomo Guzan, who rode into the Genpei War with a ferocity that rivaled her male counterparts. Yet their personal lives were equally complex. Some onimusha, like their male peers, engaged in same-sex relationships, their bonds forged in the heat of battle and the isolation of warrior life. Historical records are sparse, but diaries from the Edo period suggest women in samurai households formed intimate connections with female attendants, their relationships shrouded in secrecy, yet tolerated as long as they didn't disrupt clan lineage. The air in these women's quarters was thick with the scent of plum blossom powders and the rustle of silk kimonos, hiding passions that could never be spoken aloud. The samurai's sexual practices weren't without consequence. Medical records from the Edo period reveal the toll of these relationships, particularly on the Wakashu. Venereal diseases, though less documented than in Europe, were a festering reality, with samurai physicians noting sores and fevers that spread through intimate contact. The psychological strain was equally brutal. Young Wakashu, bound by duty, often descended into paranoia or despair, their isolation compounded by the need to maintain a facade of stoic loyalty. Samurai like Oda Nobunaga, rumored to have taken young male pages like Mori Ramaru as lovers, faced whispers of scandal that threatened their authority. Nobunaga's quarters, heavy with the scent of incense to mask the odors of war, were a stage for both power and vulnerability, his relationships a dangerous balance of desire and dominance. As Japan entered the Meiji era, these practices were thrust into conflict with Western influence. From 1872 to 1882, sodomy was briefly criminalized, a nod to Victorian morality that clashed with centuries of samurai tradition. The air in Tokyo's modernizing courts was sharp with the ink of new laws, but the ban was repealed under French legal advice, and Shudo persisted in the shadows. Yet the psychological deterioration of those caught in its web was undeniable. Samurai, once revered, became relics, their intimate rites branded as perverse by a society eager to emulate the West. The Satsuma Navy, steeped in Nanshoka traditions, carried the legacy of Shudo into the modern era, but the stigma grew, and the once sacred bonds were buried under layers of shame. The political consequences of these practices were profound. Shudo relationships, meant to strengthen loyalty, sometimes fractured alliances when jealousy or betrayal crept in. A ninja's favoritism toward a wakashu could spark rivalries, as seen in the courts of the Tokugawa shogunate, where whispered affairs led to duels and vendettas. The air in these halls was thick with the tension of unspoken grudges, the clink of swords a prelude to bloodshed over wounded pride. Publicly, samurai maintained a facade of unyielding honor, but privately, their desires shaped the course of history, from clan feuds to the fall of dynasties. The tale of Genji's frank depictions of male love hint at how these relationships influenced court politics, with lovers wielding influence that rivaled any daimyo's. The collateral damage was staggering. Wives, relegated to the margins, suffered in silence, their humiliation masked by the heavy powders of their makeup. Children born of political marriages grew up in households where affection was a currency spent elsewhere. Courtiers and servants, privy to their lord's secrets, lived in fear of exposure, their loyalty tested by the weight of what they witnessed. Medical records from the Tokugawa period describe samurai seeking laudanum to dull the shame of their deteriorating bodies or minds, their attempts to conceal their afflictions growing ever more desperate. The air in these physicians' chambers was thick with the bitter tang of herbal remedies, a futile shield against the ravages of their hidden lives. As the samurai's world crumbled, so did their ability to hide these truths. By the Edo period's end, the warrior class was dissolving, and with it, the structures that sustained Shudo. The final collapse came not in battle, but in the quiet decay of tradition. Autopsy records, though rare, reveal the physical toll. Samurai bodies riddled with the scars of disease, their bones brittle from years of stress and excess. Historical cover-ups were swift. Chroniclers sanitized the samurai's legacy, emphasizing Bushido's honor over its visceral realities. Yet preserved evidence, like the letters of Mashida and Moriwaki, or the frank diaries of Heian courtiers, endures, a testament to a world where love and duty were inseparable from pain and sacrifice. The samurai's sexual practices, once a cornerstone of their identity, were buried by history's selective memory. But let's return to that shadowed room, the air heavy with the scent of blood and loyalty. You stand there, knowing now what the samurai hid, their desires, their duties, their despair. This isn't just a story of shocking rituals. It's a mirror to the human condition, where power and vulnerability collide. The samurai, for all their strength, were undone by the very intimacies that defined them. Today, we see echoes of this in the facades of modern leaders, their private struggles shaping public destinies. The lesson is clear. No amount of armor can shield the truth. And so, we're left with a haunting image, a samurai's katana, gleaming in the lantern light, its edge stained not with the blood of enemies, but with the cost of a life lived in secret.